The room was pitch black. Everything was drowned in a cold grey-blue hue. Only one source of light remained, the dim glow from an enormous LED screen up front, displaying the words. Thomas reacts to the scariest Thomas.exe videos. A voice echoed steadily, like a church bell chiming at midnight. Warning, what you are about to witness may shatter your childhood into ashes. A red light blinked in the top corner of the screen, the camera was rolling. And then, he appeared. Thomas. Not the Thomas from the railroad tracks like in childhood memories, but a living, breathing version. He stepped straight out of a cartoon and now sat awkwardly in a swivel chair. His familiar face was still there, dopey smile, round cheeks, large innocent eyes, but today, something was off. He turned to face the camera directly. His eyes twitched. His mouth stammered. Hi, everyone, he said, voice shaky. Today I'm going to react to some scary videos about myself. Thomas shivered. He pulled a thin blue blanket over himself, leaving only his eyes peeking out like a kid watching horror movies past bedtime. Behind him, his own shadow stretched long across the wall, but it didn't move like he did. The light flickered. A soft click came from somewhere in the room. Thomas turned his head sharply. Tofu? Is that you? He called out, looking toward the plush puppet cat on the shelf. No response. Tofu lay still, silent, lifeless. One of its arms had drooped to the floor, like someone had just yanked it. Thomas trembled. He patted his chest, trying to steady his breath. Okay, Thomas. It's just a video. Just animation. You're the main character, right? He chuckled weakly. The screen flashed. The first video began. A grainy image of a dark forest appeared. Wind howled through tall, twisted trees. Dead leaves scattered across the muddy ground, damp as if it had just rained. Moonlight filtered weakly through the fog. Everything was soaked in dread. Thomas swallowed hard. All right. No big deal, he mumbled. But no one answered him. The footage shook, like the cameraman was running. A tall shadow moved among the trees, a huge creature with a rusty pole-like body and two warped megaphones for a head, emitting distorted sounds. Help me, KKKKH. Thomas's eyes widened. Siren Head? No. This video has Siren Head in it. He yanked the blanket over his head. Suddenly, Charles, Thomas's red train friend, appeared in the forest, lost. His headlamp flickered weakly. Each toot of his whistle sounded like a cry for help echoing through a graveyard. Thomas gasped. His voice quivered like he was inside the video. Charles? Why are you in there? You know it's dangerous. A cold breeze swept through the studio, making Thomas shudder. The lights blinked out for a moment. Outside the video, but inside the real room, wind began to blow. The room was sealed shut. The light from the screen lit up Thomas's face, now pale. Sweat dotted his forehead, and his dry lips trembled. In the video, Siren Head slowly approached Charles. No background music. Only the creature's wheezing breath and the desperate squeaks of Charles trying to back away. And then. Bam! Siren Head swung an arm, launching Charles into the air like a broken toy. Thomas's whole studio seemed to rumble with the impact. The chair beneath him creaked in fear. He screamed. No. Not Charles. Thomas curled up tightly. Moments later, Charles lay motionless in the forest. His wheels shattered, lights broken, face twisted pitifully. Thomas couldn't speak. He looked down at his hands, the hands of a living train, and whispered. If they did that to Charles, they could do it to me. The screen went black. In that silence, a voice came through the speakers, low, drawn out, and not belonging to any video character. If you don't subscribe to this channel, Thomas will be next. Thomas snapped his head around. No one was in the room. But that voice was still echoing, clear as day. The camera zoomed in slowly on Thomas's face. He was breathing hard, backing into his chair, eyes wide as saucers. "What the heck is going on here?" he asked, almost sobbing. "I just wanted to make a fun reaction video." From the ceiling, a drop of water fell onto his head. Plop. He looked up. The ceiling had started to crack. The screen flashed again, showing Charles, moving. "Wait. He's alive." Thomas gasped. But Charles's eyes now weren't friendly. They were something else. Thomas slowly pulled the blanket back over his head. He didn't want to watch anymore. But the video kept playing. And he couldn't leave. The camera zoomed in tight on Thomas's horrified face. His fingers clutched the armrests, heart pounding so loud it could be heard in the recording. Behind him, the tofu plush, quiet until now, suddenly turned its head. Even though no one had touched it. This was only the beginning. The screen flickered, cutting to a dim forest cloaked in fog. Trees loomed like skeletal fingers stretching into the sky. Every sound felt muted, swallowed by the thick mist that hung like an ancient curse. Thomas leaned closer, peeking out from his blanket. Okay. This is fine. Just trees. Just spooky trees." The camera within the video panned across the forest floor. The ground was soaked, mud squelching with every invisible step. Strange growls echoed from far away, faint, guttural, and not from anything human. Then, the screen glitched. For a moment, all Thomas could see was static. Then it returned. And standing dead center of the frame, Siren Head. He wasn't walking anymore. He was just standing. Still. Watching. His twin sirens emitted a slow, low-frequency buzz, like the hum of a dying power plant. From one speaker, a voice wheezed. "Cherilissless." Thomas clutched the blanket tighter. Nope. I'm out. I'm gone. Bye." He stood up, but the chair squeaked so loud he startled himself and fell right back down. "Okay, never mind. I'm staying." Back on screen, Charles was limping through the woods, smoke hissing from his cracked chimney. His movements were slow, pained, each will groaning like tortured metal. He didn't speak. But somehow, the silence was worse. Thomas whispered to himself. "He's not the same. That's not the Charles the First knew." Suddenly, from behind a tree, Siren Head lunged. He moved too fast, unnaturally fast, like the footage was sped up but only for him. 1 second, he was far. The next, he was right behind Charles. And then, boom. With a single swipe, Siren Head hurled Charles into a tree. The sound was sickening. Metal crunched. Steam hissed. Debris rained down like glass shards in slow motion. Thomas screamed. "Charles!" But it wasn't over. The camera zoomed in. Charles was getting up. His wheels twisted at odd angles. His eyes, one broken, one flickering red, locked onto Siren Head. Sparks jumped from his smokestack. And then he growled. Yes, growled. Did Charles just growl? Thomas whispered. In the video, Charles lunged. No hesitation. Just rage. He rammed into Siren Head at full force, knocking the monster back into the trees. The forest shook. Leaves fell like ash. The camera shook violently. A strange music cue played, epic, orchestral, like a final boss battle. Thomas was suddenly on his feet, fist in the air. Yes. Get him, Charles. Teach that walking radio a lesson. Tofu the puppet flopped off the shelf from the vibration, landing with a soft thud. Thomas didn't notice. He was too caught up. Back in the video, Siren Head rose from the dirt, limbs twitching. The creature screamed, no, it broadcasted, a wave of frequencies so loud it cracked the lens. The camera blacked out for a second. Then came back. But now, something was off. Everything had changed. The forest was darker. Black tendrils crept from the trees. The fog had turned red. Charles stood at the center, panting like a wild animal. Siren Head had vanished. And standing behind Charles, was Thomas. Not the real one. The other one. Thomas.exe. His eyes were pitch-black voids. His smile, no longer innocent, stretched ear to ear like a slit carved by a madman. He stepped forward. Each step made the ground shudder. Charles turned to face him. The screen pulsed with red light. Thomas, the real one, covered his eyes. Nope. I'm out again. Real out this time. Someone delete this video from the internet, please. He peeked through his fingers. The video hadn't stopped. Thomas.exe moved closer. Charles lowered his stance, preparing for another charge. But the forest grew quiet. Too quiet. The red fog coiled around them like a snake waiting to strike. And then, from the screen. Thomas. I see you. The real Thomas jolted. His chair rolled back a foot. I swear that voice just said my name. He looked at the screen. The Thomas.exe on screen had turned. Was staring directly at him. Thomas froze. The puppet Tofu, lying on the floor, blinked. The video cut to black. And in bold red letters, one final message flashed across the screen. He's coming. Thomas sat perfectly still. The air in the room had changed. He heard a faint whistle. A train whistle. From inside the house. The silence was suffocating. Thomas sat motionless in his chair, eyes glued to the now black screen. The words, he's coming, had vanished, but their echo still hung in the air like invisible smoke. Then. Toot. A faint train whistle sounded again. Thomas slowly turned his head, like in every cliché horror movie where the audience screams, "Don't look." But he looked anyway. The door to the studio creaked open. No wind. No movement. Just that eerie, drawn-out creaking sound that made every hair on his metal frame stand up. Okay, Thomas said, voice cracking. Whoever's doing this, it's not funny. I mean it. Silence answered. Thomas hesitated, then slowly rolled his chair toward the door. Weak. Weak. Each inch felt like a mile. He poked his head into the hallway. Nothing. Just the dark corridor, lit only by flickering emergency lights like the power was going out. Or something was draining it. Then, a metallic clunk echoed from the end of the hall. Thomas flinched. Nope. 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 Back to the screen. I'm safer with the cursed video than the cursed hallway. He spun around. And froze. The screen was no longer black. It had turned on again by itself. And there he was. Charles. Back on screen. Only this time, he was different. His once bright red paint was dull and burned. His face was cracked, pieces missing, exposing wires and gears beneath. One of his eyes glitched, flickering between soft blue and sharp crimson. He didn't speak. But his whistle blew. Long, sad. Haunted. Then came the static. Harsh, violent static that pierced the speakers. Thomas winced and covered his ears, if he had actual ears. From the white noise, a voice emerged. Distorted. Layered. Almost like two people speaking at once. Charles. Was never gone. Thomas's breath caught in his throat. The screen glitched again, and this time, a live camera feed appeared. Of Thomas. Sitting there. In his own room. Watching himself on screen. He jumped up, knocking the chair over. What the actual F? He stopped. Swallowed his panic. The camera zoomed in, on his terrified face. On the sweat forming on his metal forehead. On his trembling hands. Then, behind him in the feed, movement. A flicker. Something standing behind the door. Thomas turned in real life. Nothing. He turned back to the screen. The figure was closer now. Closer. Closer. Thomas stumbled back, legs weak. Tofu lay motionless on the floor, staring at the ceiling like it had seen things no plush should see. Then the lights went out. Everything. Darkness. Only the screen glowed now. The live feed faded. Replaced by a single, still image. Thomas.exe. Standing in a pitch-black room. Smiling. Not the goofy, lovable Thomas smile. This one, was wide. Crooked. Unhinged. His eyes bled black oil. His grill plate mouth had sharp, uneven metal teeth now. And across the screen, red letters bled into existence. Run. Thomas didn't need another warning. He sprinted out of the studio, metal wheels screeching across the floor. The hallway was darker than before. Longer. Twisting in ways that didn't make sense, like the architecture itself had shifted. Doors appeared and disappeared. Walls bent. Time slowed. Tofu bounced behind him, somehow keeping up without legs. This is insane. This is insane. Thomas shouted, running past a window. He stopped. Looked outside. The sky, wasn't the sky anymore. It was a swirling vortex of code. Glitched clouds. Binary stars. Text fragments like error_404 and no escape floated across a crimson sky. This isn't just a video, Thomas whispered. This is a trap. He turned. Slammed into something hard. Someone. Charles. Standing there. Silent. His red eye glowing. See Charles? Is that really you? Thomas stammered. Charles said nothing. But he stepped aside. Revealing another screen. On it, a paused frame. Thomas.exe. Still smiling. Still waiting. Charles tilted his head as if saying, "It's your move." Thomas looked between the screen and Charles. And then, to himself. All right. Let's finish this. He stepped toward the screen. Reached out. And touched it. The moment Thomas's hand touched the screen, everything, gravity, sound, light, collapsed into a single point. And then. Boom. He was somewhere else. The air was thicker, like breathing through syrup. A heavy smell of rust, mold, and something, worse, like burnt rubber and decayed dreams, invaded his senses. The world was dark. Not just low-lit, oppressively dark. The kind of dark that didn't end at the edges of the room but crawled under your skin, whispering things your brain refused to translate. Thomas blinked. And realized he was inside a railcar. An old one. Abandoned. Warped. Wrong. Flickering bulbs hung from cracked wires overhead, swinging gently even though there was no wind. The walls were soaked in grime and, was that blood? He didn't want to get close enough to find out. The floor creaked with every step. And then the door behind him slammed shut. Locked. Welp, Thomas muttered. Of course. He turned slowly, his metal steps echoing down the narrow corridor. Graffiti covered every inch of the railcar walls, childlike drawings scratched in with fingernails, not crayons. Phrases repeated over and over. He smiles because he can't scream. Don't blink. Don't move. The engine never sleeps. Thomas gulped. Are these messages for me? Or from me? As he crept forward, something caught his eye, a mirror. Just a broken shard, bolted into the side wall like some sick joke. But when he looked into it, he didn't see himself. Instead, he saw Thomas.exe. Standing in the reflection. Smiling. And behind him. Tofu. But twisted. Its button eyes were gone, replaced by black sockets dripping dark goo. Its stitched smile had torn open at the edges. Tofu lifted a hand. And waved. Thomas spun around, nobody there. The mirror was now cracked beyond use. He kept walking. The railcar groaned as though it were alive, protesting his presence. Pipes hissed, steam burst out from the floor, and all the while, a low, mechanical heartbeat pulsed through the walls. Then, at the end of the hallway, a light. Warm. Golden. Comforting. He rushed toward it like a moth to a flame. Pushed open the next door. And entered a room that made zero sense. A kitchen. Yes. A fully furnished, absurdly clean, almost cheerful kitchen, inside the haunted railcar. A red checkered tablecloth. Teacups. And two figures standing at the counter. Charles, and Thomas.exe. Wearing aprons. Cooking. Cooking. Thomas blinked several times. Charles was beating eggs with mechanical precision, while Thomas.exe sprinkled chopped onions onto something that may or may not have once been a squirrel. They turned to face him. You made it. Charles said, voice robotic but weirdly upbeat. Thomas.exe said nothing. Just smiled. Still with those pitch-black eyes. Thomas stood there, mouth open. What is happening? Charles wiped his hands on a towel. We're having a cook-off. It's a long tradition among haunted trains. Thomas just stared, utterly broken. You threw me into a haunted meat grinder of a railcar just to make me judge your chopped liver soufflé? Charles shrugged. Art requires sacrifice. Tofu popped out of a nearby cupboard, now wearing a chef's hat stitched from a napkin. He's not lying, it squeaked. Thomas backed away slowly, his voice rising. This is insane. I'm in a demonic death train kitchen watching my evil twin sauté onions with a possessed plush cat narrating like it's Hell's Kitchen. Tofu nodded. Correct. Then the lights cut out. Again. Total blackout. The air turned cold. The temperature dropped so fast Thomas could see frost forming on the walls. And then. Laughter. Slow, cracking laughter that didn't come from any of them. It echoed from the walls. From the ceiling. From underneath the railcar floor. Thomas.exe turned. His smile vanished. He's here, he whispered. Charles dropped the pan. Tofu screamed, run. But it was too late. The floor beneath them erupted. A massive, twisted metal claw burst through, grabbing the table and yanking it downward. The room caved inward like it was being swallowed whole. Thomas was thrown against the wall. Everything spun. His vision blurred. And through the chaos, through the smoke and screaming, he saw it. The real monster. The engine without a name. Black steel. Dozens of eyes. Whistles that sounded like children crying. And a mouth, yes, a mouth, on its front, filled with churning gears like teeth. Thomas.exe screamed, not in rage, but in fear. He was never meant to wake up. The beast roared, steam shooting from its spine, smashing through the ceiling of the car like it was paper. Thomas scrambled to his feet. What is that? What is that? Charles grabbed him. The final stop. Thomas.exe grabbed his own face and began to glitch, code ripping from his skin. Tofu yelled. We have to go, now. And the railcar shattered. Into a whirlwind of data, darkness, and death. Everything fell. The train, the walls, the floors, reality itself came apart like paper tossed into a firestorm. Thomas tumbled through the void. No direction. No gravity. No time. Just endless falling. Code streamed past his eyes, glowing numbers and symbols like data bleeding from a dying video game. Snippets of old Thomas and Friends episodes flickered beside horrifying reboots, faces melting, engines screaming, tracks made of bone. And then, boom. He landed. Hard. Flat on his face. Groaning, Thomas pushed himself up and blinked. He was no longer in the railcar. He wasn't anywhere that made sense. The world around him looked like a broken desktop. Massive pixelated trees stood on jagged terrain that glitched and reloaded in real time. The sky flickered between normal daylight, static, and pure red. Text flashed across the horizon. Error, unreality detected. Proceed anyway. Y/N. Thomas rubbed his eyes. Okay. This has officially gone beyond nightmare and into cosmic programming meltdown. A voice behind him replied. Welcome to the loading zone. He spun around. It was Thomas.exe, his evil twin, but different now. Glitching. Weak. His skin flickered like a corrupt JPEG, bits of his frame missing. Even his ever-present smile was faltering. You broke the railcar, Thomas said. Thomas.exe nodded. I was never meant to cross the firewall. But you triggered the merge. The merge? Merge what? The videos? The games? The cursed fan edits? Thomas.exe staggered toward him. No, you and me. Before Thomas could scream, Charles came crashing down from the sky like a meteor. Everybody move. He slammed into the ground with enough force to send data chunks flying. Pieces of code rained down like confetti. From the digital mist emerged the monster again. The engine without a name. Bigger now. Faster. Its wheels didn't roll, they glided across fractured terrain. Its mouth yawned open, revealing an entire engine room of screaming faces, all pixelated and twitching like corrupted sprites. Thomas ran. Charles followed, yelling. Don't look back. It feeds on recognition. Thomas.exe limped behind them, glitching with every step. The world was collapsing. Terrain flickered. Mountains disappeared. Tracks vanished mid-step. One moment there was a forest, the next, a checkerboard void. This is madness. Thomas shouted. Charles laughed. Welcome to YouTube, kid. Suddenly, a cursor, a giant white mouse pointer, appeared in the sky. It clicked. The ground disappeared. They plummeted again, into what looked like a video player interface. Thomas crashed through the play bar. Charles bounced off the like button. Tofu, somehow reappearing mid-air, yelled, hit subscribe or die. They landed inside a paused video frame. Except it was alive. The thumbnail pulsed like a heart. The title at the top read. Thomas.exe vs. Thomas, Final Glitch Battle, Episode 666. Thomas sat up. What is this? Thomas.exe coughed. His voice was fainter now, less threatening. This is the end. The fan edit no one was ever supposed to see. Suddenly, the sky split open like paper. The monster's face appeared again, now stretched across the heavens. It spoke, not in sound, but in pure code. You are all content. You are all views. You are nothing but clicks. Thomas's heart raced. This thing, it feeds off our fear. Our reactions. It's not just a monster, it's the algorithm. Charles nodded grimly. Exactly. It doesn't care about heroes or villains. Just drama. Just chaos. Thomas looked down at his trembling hands. So how do we stop it? A pause. Then Thomas.exe, barely holding together, whispered. You, delete me. Thomas recoiled. What? No. There has to be another way. Thomas.exe smiled, the first real smile he'd ever given. I was born from corrupted memories. Haunted versions. Dark fan theories. I'm your shadow, Thomas. But if you delete me, the cycle might break. Thomas hesitated. Behind them, the engine roared. Closer now. Every scream, every like, every share it consumed made it stronger. Charles stepped forward. We're with you. End this. Thomas reached toward his evil twin. His hand glowed, pure blue light, warm and strong. He touched Thomas.exe's forehead. A menu appeared. Delete file, Thomas.exe. This action cannot be undone. Proceed. Thomas pressed yes. A massive burst of light exploded outward. The engine screamed in pure rage. The sky broke apart. The screen flashed. And then. Black. Silent. For a moment it was like none of it ever happened. Then. A single beep. And Thomas opened his eyes. He was back. In the studio. Chair upright. Camera blinking. Video paused. Tofu lay peacefully on the shelf, eyes normal again. Thomas took a deep breath. Then looked at the screen. And hit play. Thomas stared at the paused screen, his reflection faintly visible in the glossy surface. Everything was back to normal. Or so it seemed. The room looked the same. The light above no longer flickered. Tofu sat quietly on the shelf, legs dangling like an obedient plush. The subscribe button no longer glowed ominously in the corner of the monitor. But Thomas knew better. This wasn't over. Not yet. He pressed play. The screen didn't show any video. Instead, it loaded something new. A black screen with a glowing upload bar. Final file, thomas.real.exe. Processing, 99%. Thomas leaned closer. Wait. I didn't start an upload. The bar ticked upward. 99.1%. 99.3%. Then it stalled. The lights dimmed. The room temperature dropped again. A voice, low and mechanical, echoed from the speakers. You thought it was that easy? Thomas's eyes widened. Oh no. Oh no no no. The upload bar glitched. 99.6%. Then the screen flashed. And suddenly, Thomas wasn't in the studio anymore. He was back inside the system. Except this time, he was the file. I've been digitized. Again. Can't I just review meme compilations like a normal train? The world around him was a sea of data, streams of code flowing like rivers, platforms shaped like upload icons, skyscrapers made from stacks of corrupted video thumbnails. He stood atop a giant play button, floating in space. Above him, the final upload server hovered, a massive digital construct shaped like a train station from a dystopian nightmare. Giant screens covered its walls, all playing different versions of himself, twisted, smiling, melting. And in the center, it waited. The algorithm. No longer just a voice. Now it had a form. A glitch beast made of comments, corrupted thumbnails, and stolen audio. It slithered across reality like a virus with teeth. Its body constantly shifted, sometimes it looked like Thomas.exe, sometimes like Charles, sometimes like a copyright claim. It turned to Thomas. You deleted one version of you. But you've been uploaded. Permanently. Thomas shook his head. Not if I can log out. The algorithm laughed, 1,000 overlapping voices screaming and laughing and auto-tuning. There is no log out button. Then it lunged. Thomas jumped off the platform, rolling onto a stack of recommended for you tiles. He grabbed a glowing sword made of terms of service and swung wildly. Sparks flew as the blade clashed against a wall of dislike emojis hurled at him. Tofu. I could really use some backup. From above, a parachute popped open, and Tofu descended, dual-wielding butter knives taped with USB cords. Don't worry. I updated myself during the last reboot. He landed beside Thomas, dramatically slicing a thumbs-down icon in half. Charles crashed in moments later, driving across the Watch History bridge, his wheels leaving trails of sparks. Everyone in one piece. Barely. Thomas yelled. The algorithm roared again. It grew larger with every second, feeding on data, reactions, watch time. A counter appeared over its head. Engagement rate, 9,812,244%. It's growing too fast. Thomas shouted. We need to cut the source. Tofu pointed at the core, a throbbing red mass labeled. Recommendation engine. That's it. If we destroy that, we can break the cycle. Thomas didn't hesitate. He and Charles rushed forward while Tofu hacked into the system, disabling autoplay. The algorithm howled in pain as the screen flickered violently. A dramatic choir erupted from nowhere. Probably part of the soundtrack. Thomas ran up a staircase made of top shorts and dove straight into the core. Boom. The explosion sent shockwaves through the entire server world. Reality cracked like glass. The corrupted thumbnails shattered. The comment chains unraveled. The algorithm screamed one last time. You sent asterisk asterisk. Silence. A single frame. Thomas. Tofu. Charles. Standing in an empty white void. Then, like the world rebooting. They were back in the studio. Everything perfectly still. A loading bar popped up on the screen. Final file, deleted. Welcome back, Thomas. He blinked. Then turned to the camera. Smiled. Hey, everyone. If you're watching this, you're still real. I think. Tofu leaned into frame. We've officially survived the most haunted upload in history. Charles honked off screen. Thomas looked into the lens, eyes wide with one final plea. Whatever you do, don't search for thomas.real.exe. And whatever you find, don't react to it. He leaned in, whispering. That's how they get you.